I should have known something was wrong when the human arrived wearing what we later learned was called a Hawaiian shirt. Let me back up. My name is Throknar, and I serve as the third subordinate administrator to the High Council of the Vrellian Empire. We are, without question, the most advanced civilization in this sector of the galaxy. Our technology spans 14 star systems. Our diplomatic protocols have been refined over 6,000 years. Our court proceedings are legendary for their precision, their decorum, their absolute adherence to tradition. And then, Earth sent us Leo Brennan. The morning of his arrival, I remember standing in the grand reception hall, my 4 arms arranged in the traditional gesture of formal greeting. Around me, the other council members maintained their positions with practiced stillness. The hall itself was magnificent, all polished stone and floating light spheres, with the great seal of our empire rotating slowly overhead. Everything was perfect. Everything was as it should be. The doors opened. In walked a human male, approximately 1.8 meters tall, with messy brown hair and what I can only describe as a ridiculously casual posture. He was indeed wearing that shirt, covered in bright pink flowers and small yellow fruits. On his feet were open-toed sandals. Sandals. In the grand reception hall, where 3 emperors had once stood trial for treason, High Administrator Krelzan, my superior, made a choking sound that our translators mercifully did not broadcast. "Yo," the human said, raising one hand in what we would later learn was a wave. "Leo Brennan, Earth's diplomatic liaison. Sorry I'm late. Your planet has like 17 time zones, and honestly, your shuttle pilot wouldn't let me drive." Silence. Absolute, horrified silence. I watched as First Administrator Ventrix's face turned from its normal purple to a disturbing shade of green. The temperature in the room seemed to drop by several degrees. "Mr. Brennan," Krelzan finally managed, his voice strained. "You were informed of our dress code requirements, were you not?" "Oh, totally," Leo said, grinning. He gestured at his shirt. "This is my formal Hawaiian. You should see my casual one. It has parrots." I wanted to dissolve into the floor. This was the representative Earth had sent to negotiate a trade agreement worth approximately 4 trillion credits. This grinning fool in beach attire. Ventrix stepped forward, her primary eyes narrowed. "Human, do you understand the gravity of these proceedings? The Vrellian Empire does not take lightly to mockery." "Good," Leo said cheerfully, "because I'm not mocking anything. I'm just here to talk. That's what diplomacy is, right? Talking?" "It is significantly more complex than mere conversation," Krelzan said coldly. "There are protocols, procedures, ancient traditions that must be observed." "Cool, cool," Leo nodded, shoving his hands into his pockets. "So when do we start?" I almost admired his confidence. Almost. Mostly I was calculating how quickly I could distance myself from the inevitable disaster. The negotiations were scheduled to begin the following morning. That gave us exactly 18 hours to try and salvage something from this catastrophe. Krelzan assigned me the unfortunate task of briefing the human on proper courtroom etiquette. I found Leo in his guest quarters, which he had somehow already filled with various Earth items, including what he called a portable espresso machine and several books with worn covers. "Oh, hey, Throk buddy," he said when I entered. "Want some coffee? Fair warning, it's basically rocket fuel." "I do not," I said stiffly. "Mr. Brennan, we need to discuss tomorrow." "Sure thing." He flopped onto a chair with complete disregard for posture. "What's up? Where to even begin?" "The council chambers operate under strict guidelines. When you speak, you must use the formal mode of address. You must refer to each council member by their full title. You must stand at the designated mark, with your primary appendages visible at all times." "Uh-huh." Leo was nodding, but his attention seemed divided. He was doing something with a small device. "Are you listening?" I demanded. "Totally. Formal talk, fancy titles, stand still, show hands." "Got it." He looked up, and to my surprise, his expression was serious. "Throk, can I ask you something?" "If you must." "Why is everyone here so terrified of me?" I blinked, momentarily confused. "Terrified?" "Human, we are not terrified. We are concerned about your complete lack of proper protocol." "Nah," he shook his head. "That's not it. I've been to formal events. I can do stuffy. But you guys aren't worried I'll use the wrong fork. You're worried about something else. Perceptive. Annoyingly perceptive. I hesitated, then decided honesty might shock him into taking this seriously. Earth is an unknown variable. Your planet appeared on our sensors barely 2 centuries ago. Your technology advanced from basic combustion engines to faster-than-light travel in less than 3 generations. That rate of development is unprecedented, alarming. And so you want to keep us contained, Leo finished. Keep the trade agreements tight, the treaties specific. Make sure we stay in our little corner of space. I did not say that. You didn't have to. He stood up, and for the first time, I noticed something different about his demeanor. The casual attitude was still there, but underneath it was something sharper. Here's the thing, Throck. I get it. New player at the table, you don't know our rules, don't trust our moves, but treating us like dangerous children, that's not going to work out the way you think. Then what do you suggest? I found myself asking, despite my better judgment. Leo smiled, but this time it did not quite reach his eyes. How about we skip the dance and actually talk? I mean really talk. No scripts, no formal protocols, just honest conversation about what both our peoples need. That is not how the Council operates. Maybe it should. I left his quarters feeling more unsettled than when I had arrived. Something about the human's confidence bothered me. It was not arrogance exactly, more like certainty, as if he knew something we did not. The next morning, the council chambers filled with officials from across our empire. The gallery seats were packed. This was not just a trade negotiation anymore. Everyone wanted to see the human, to witness this strange creature from the aggressive young species. Leo entered wearing a suit, an actual suit, dark blue, properly fitted, with a tie and everything. I felt a small surge of relief. Perhaps our conversation had made an impact. He took his position at the speaking mark, standing straight, hands visible. Krell-Zan began the formal proceedings, his voice resonating through the chamber. We convene this council to address the proposal presented by Earth regarding resource exchange, technological cooperation, and territorial boundaries. The human representative will now state his people's position, using the proper forms of address and acknowledging the supremacy of Vrellian law in these matters. Leo nodded slowly. He looked around the chamber, making eye contact with various council members. Then he spoke. No. One syllable. That was all. The chamber erupted. Council members shouted in outrage. Guards moved forward, though they seemed uncertain what to actually do. Krell-Zan hammered his gavel, demanding order. Through it all, Leo stood perfectly still, waiting. Finally, the noise subsided. Krell-Zan's voice was dangerously quiet. What did you say? I said no, Leo repeated calmly. I'm not going to stand here and acknowledge the supremacy of your laws over my people. That's not negotiation. That's surrender. You dare, Ventrix hissed, rising from her seat. You dare insult this council in its own chambers? I'm not insulting anyone, Leo said. I'm stating a fact. You want Earth to play by your rules, in your house, with your terms. But here's what I think you're missing. He paused, and the chamber fell silent despite itself. You need us, just as much as we need you, maybe more. Preposterous. Another council member, Zalfkor, snapped. Earth has nothing we require. Really? Leo's expression was almost amused. Then why invite us at all? Why not just ignore us? Let us play in our corner of space. He started walking, moving away from the designated mark. Several guards tensed. I'll tell you why. Because in the last 50 years, Earth has developed adaptive AI systems, quantum entanglement communication, and biological regeneration technology. We did it fast, we did it efficiently, and we did it without following anyone else's roadmap. Stolen technology, someone muttered from the gallery. Leo's head snapped toward the sound. Stolen? From who? We literally didn't know you existed until 20 years ago. He turned back to the council. No, this is original human work, and that terrifies you. Because if we can go from steam engines to star drives in 2 centuries, what will we be capable of in another 2, another 10? The silence now was different, thoughtful, uncomfortable. Krell-Zan leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing, human? A partnership, Leo said simply. Not subjugation, not containment, real cooperation. You have experience, established systems, knowledge that spans millennia. We have adaptability, innovation, and a completely different perspective on problem solving. Combine those things, and we could both benefit enormously. And if we refuse? Ventrix asked. Leo shrugged. Then we go our separate ways. We'll figure things out on our own. We always do. But I think that would be a missed opportunity. For both of us. I found myself leaning forward in my seat, genuinely curious about what would happen next. The human had essentially thrown our entire protocol and out the window, insulted our authority, and somehow made it sound reasonable. Krelzan and Ventrix exchanged glances. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Very well, Krelzan said finally. We will hear your full proposal. But know this, Leo Brennan. If your words prove empty, if Earth cannot deliver on these promises, there will be consequences. Fair enough, Leo said. But if we succeed, you'll need to adjust those protocols of yours. Because the galaxy is bigger than any one empire's traditions. As the session was called to recess, I watched the human walk out of the chamber with that same casual confidence. Several council members were already huddled in urgent conversation. Others looked thoughtful. A few looked angry. And I realized something that made my blood run cold. The human had not stumbled into this situation unprepared. Everything, from the Hawaiian shirt to the dramatic confrontation, had been calculated. He had assessed our weaknesses, identified our fears, and exploited them perfectly. Earth had not sent us a diplomat. They had sent us a predator wearing a smile. The recess lasted exactly 30 minutes, during which I witnessed more frantic political maneuvering than I had seen in my entire career. Council members formed clusters in the hallways, their voices low and urgent. Some wanted Leo removed from the planet immediately. Others argued for giving him a chance. A few, disturbingly, seemed almost impressed. I found myself drawn to the observation balcony where Leo stood alone, looking out at our capital city sprawling below. The twin suns cast long shadows across the buildings. That was quite a performance, I said, approaching carefully. He glanced at me, that infuriating smile back in place. Was it, though? Or was it just honesty delivered in a way people actually had to listen to? You deliberately provoked the council. You knew exactly what reaction you would get. Sure did. He turned to face me fully. Your people respect strength, Throk. Not aggression, but certainty. If I had walked in there apologizing and bowing, following every rule perfectly, they would have walked all over Earth. We would have signed whatever treaty you wanted, and 50 years from now, humans would be second-class citizens in our own agreements. And you think insulting us was better? I think showing you we cannot be intimidated was necessary. He leaned against the railing. Look, I actually read your history. All 6,000 years of it. You know what I found? Every single species that joined the Vrellian Empire did so from a position of weakness. They needed protection, or resources, or technology. They came begging, and you gave them what they needed, sure, but always with strings attached. Always with conditions that kept them dependent. I wanted to argue, but the words died in my throat. He was not wrong. Earth does not need saving, Leo continued. We are doing fine on our own. Messy, chaotic, but fine. So, if we are going to work together, it has to be as equals. And the only way to establish that was to make you see us differently. By being rude? He laughed. By being unpredictable. You had me figured out before I arrived, right? Analyzed human psychology, studied our history, prepared responses for every possible diplomatic approach. Traditional, formal, aggressive posturing, humble supplication. You had contingencies for all of it. Of course we did. But you did not have a plan for a guy in a Hawaiian shirt who refuses to play the game. His grin widened. Humans are really good at changing the rules mid-match. It is kind of our specialty. Before I could respond, a messenger appeared, summoning us both back to the chamber. The recess was over. This time, the atmosphere felt different. The hostility had shifted into something more complicated. Curiosity, mixed with wariness. The gallery was even more packed than before, with officials standing in the back when seats ran out. Krelzan called the session to order. The Council has deliberated. We are willing to hear Earth's full proposal, But we require concrete details. Not philosophy, not promises. Specifics. Leo nodded. Fair. Let me start with medical technology. Earth has developed regenerative therapy that can regrow damaged organs using the patient's own cellular structure. No rejection issues, no synthetic replacements. The success rate is 94%. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ventrix leaned forward. We have cloning technology that achieves similar results. Right, but your process takes 6 months and costs approximately 2 million credits per procedure, Leo countered. Ours takes 3 weeks and runs about 50,000. We can scale it, make it accessible to populations across multiple worlds. In exchange for what? Zalthkor asked suspiciously. Access to your agricultural systems. Earth's population is growing fast. We need to learn large-scale food production in low-gravity environments. You have been perfecting that for centuries. Share that knowledge, and we will share the medical tech. Both our peoples benefit. I watched the council members process this. It was a reasonable trade. Almost too reasonable. What about military technology? Another council member, Prexlin, demanded. Your species has a reputation for conflict. What weapons are you developing? Leo's expression became carefully neutral. We have weapons, yes. Any species does. But we are not offering military tech in these negotiations. That stays home. Unacceptable, Prexlin snapped. Full disclosure is required. No, Leo said simply. You do not get to inspect our defenses. That is non-negotiable. We will share scientific advancement, cultural exchange, economic cooperation, but our military capabilities remain our business. That sounds like a threat, Ventrix observed coldly. It is a boundary, Leo corrected. There is a difference. We are not threatening anyone. But we are also not going to make ourselves completely vulnerable to demonstrate trust. You would not do that either. Silence again. He had them there. Krelzan drummed his fingers on the table, a sign of deep thought. Your AI systems. We have heard rumors of their capabilities. Are those available for trade? Some aspects, yes. Others, no. Leo pulled out a small datapad. We can share basic adaptive learning algorithms and neural network architecture, the foundational stuff that would help you improve existing systems. But our advanced consciousness modeling? That stays locked down. Too much potential for misuse. You do not trust us, Ventrix stated. I do not trust anyone with that level of power, Leo replied. Not my own government, not yours, not anyone. Some technologies are too dangerous to share freely. I assume you have similar restrictions. More glances exchanged among the council. They did indeed have classified technology they would never trade. The negotiations continued for hours. Leo proposed, the council countered, compromises were reached. It was actually functional, productive even. Without the rigid protocols, conversation flowed more naturally. Ideas were debated rather than formally presented and rejected. I noticed something else too. Leo's casual demeanor had subtly shifted. He was still relaxed, still occasionally made jokes that confused the translators. But he was also sharp, precise. He knew exactly which technologies Earth could afford to share and which needed protection. He understood the economic implications of each trade. He had clearly studied our needs extensively. This was not a fool in a beach shirt. This was a strategist who had chosen his costume deliberately. As the suns began to set, casting orange light through the chamber windows, Krelzan called for a temporary halt. We have made significant progress, more than I anticipated, frankly, but there are still details to resolve. We will reconvene. Tomorrow morning. Leo stood, stretching unself-consciously. Works for me. My brain is fried anyway. You guys have really thorough contract language. One more thing, Ventrix said, her voice cutting through the general shuffling as people prepared to leave. Why you? Sorry? Why did Earth send you specifically? Your background check revealed nothing particularly exceptional. Mid-level diplomatic experience, average academic credentials, no special military training. Why not send your best negotiator? Your most experienced ambassador? Leo smiled, and for just a moment I saw something else in his eyes, something older than his apparent age suggested. Because your intelligence service would have compiled detailed psychological profiles on our top diplomats, you would know their tactics, their weaknesses, their patterns. You would have prepared countermeasures. And you? I am nobody, no profile to study, no predictable patterns. Just some guy who happens to be decent at reading rooms and thinking on his feet. He paused. Also, I volunteered. Most of our top people did not want this assignment. Too risky. Career-ending if it went wrong. But I figured, what the hell? Worst case, I get fired and become a fun footnote in history. Best case, I help build something that matters. The honesty in his voice was unexpected, disarming even. Krelzan actually smiled, a rare expression. You are either very brave or very foolish, Leo Brennan. Probably both, Leo agreed cheerfully. Most humans are. The chamber emptied slowly. I waited while Leo gathered his things, then walked with him back toward the guest quarters. You are not what I expected, I admitted. Good. Expectations are boring. He glanced at me. Can I ask you something? Honestly? I suppose. Do you actually think this will work? Earth and Vrellia cooperating? I considered the question carefully. 3 days ago, I would have said no. Your species seemed too unpredictable, too aggressive, too different. But now? I gestured vaguely. Perhaps, if both sides are willing to adapt. That is all I am asking for, Leo said quietly. Not perfection, just willingness. The next morning brought unexpected news. During the night, 3 other species within the Empire had requested permission to send observers to the negotiations. Word had spread about the human who challenged the council and lived. They wanted to see what would happen next. Krelzan seemed annoyed by this development, but could not refuse without appearing weak. The gallery filled with even more diverse faces. Representatives from the insectoid Crix, the aquatic Delphon, the crystalline Zarath, all watching. Leo noticed immediately. Wow. Full house today. Your reputation precedes you, I said dryly. Great. No pressure then. The session began, but the dynamic had shifted again. With other species watching, the council seemed more conscious of how they appeared, less willing to be openly hostile, more concerned with demonstrating fairness. Leo naturally exploited this ruthlessly. When Prexlin tried to insert an unfavorable clause about Earth's shipping rights, Leo calmly pointed out how similar restrictions on the Crix had caused economic problems 15 years ago. Several Crix observers made notes. Prexlin backed down. When Zalfkor suggested limiting human expansion to specific sectors, Leo mentioned the Delphon's successful unrestricted growth model. The Delphon observers nodded approvingly. Zalfkor reconsidered. It was masterful. He was not just negotiating for Earth. He was creating a precedent that other species could reference in their own future dealings with the Empire. Ventrix finally caught on. You are deliberately making this a public spectacle. I am conducting negotiations in a transparent manner, Leo corrected innocently. Isn't that what diplomacy is supposed to be? Open and honest? You are undermining our authority. I am showing that authority works better when it is earned rather than imposed. He looked around the chamber. Every species here has something unique to offer. The Vrellian Empire has been strong because it brought different peoples together, but maybe it could be even stronger if those relationships were partnerships instead of hierarchies. The watching observers reacted visibly, some with surprise, others with something that looked like hope. Krelzan raised a hand for silence. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight I had never heard before. You are proposing fundamental changes to our system. I am proposing evolution, Leo said. Systems that do not adapt eventually fail. Earth learned that the hard way multiple times. We have collapsed civilizations in our history. Empires that became too rigid, too convinced of their own superiority. They all fell eventually. And you think the Vrellian Empire is at risk? I think the Vrellian Empire has a choice. Keep doing things the way they have always been done, maintaining control through dependency, and maybe last another 1,000 years. Or adapt, build genuine partnerships, and potentially last forever. Leo's voice softened. I am not your enemy. None of us are. We are just different approaches to the same goal, survival and growth. Why not use that diversity instead of trying to homogenize it? The chamber fell into contemplative silence. I could see council members struggling with the concept. Everything Leo said contradicted millennia of tradition, but it also made a terrible kind of sense. Finally, Krelzan stood. We will recess for deliberation. This requires discussion beyond this chamber. As people filed out, I noticed something remarkable. Several observers approached Leo directly, speaking quietly. He listened to each one, nodding, occasionally smiling. They were making connections, building relationships. Earth had not sent a diplomat to negotiate a single treaty. They had sent a catalyst to potentially reshape galactic politics. 3 hours later, the council returned. Krelzan's expression was unreadable. The council has reached a decision regarding Earth's proposal. He paused, letting tension build. We accept the core terms of cooperation: medical technology in exchange for agricultural knowledge, limited AI sharing under strict ethical guidelines, cultural exchange programs, economic partnership with equal profit distribution. Relief flooded through me. Leo simply nodded, though I caught a brief flash of satisfaction in his eyes. However, Ventrix added, we are also implementing broader reforms. A new commission will be established to review all current treaties with member species, to ensure relationships are equitable, to build the partnerships your humans spoke of. Leo blinked, apparently surprised for the first time. That is more than I expected. Your points were valid, Krelzan admitted grudgingly. Difficult to hear, but valid. The Empire has grown complacent. Perhaps it is time for change. He leaned forward. But understand, Leo Brennan, if Earth fails to uphold these agreements, if you prove untrustworthy, the consequences will be severe. Understood completely, Leo said seriously. We will honor this treaty. You have my word. The word of a human wearing a flower shirt, Zalthkor muttered. Leo grinned. Hey, I wore a suit for the important parts. That shows growth. Despite everything, several council members actually laughed. The formal signing ceremony was scheduled for the following day. As I walked Leo back to his quarters that evening, he seemed almost relaxed. Content. You did it, I said. Against all probability. We did it, he corrected. You helped more than you know, Throk. Answering my questions, being honest about your concerns. That mattered. I still do not entirely understand how you pulled this off. Leo stopped walking, looking up at the stars visible through the dome above us. You want to know the real secret? It was not strategy or manipulation or any of that complicated stuff. It was just remembering that everyone, human or Vrellian or whatever, wants basically the same things. Respect, security, a chance to thrive. Once you strip away the protocols and the posturing, we are all just people trying to do our best. That seems overly simplistic. Maybe, but sometimes simple is what works, he resumed walking. Plus, okay, the Hawaiian shirt thing was absolutely a calculated move. I needed you off balance from the start. I made a sound that might have been a laugh, that much was obvious. Was it though? Because I still got past your security wearing it. Fair point. The next morning, the treaty was signed in a ceremony that somehow managed to be both formal and strangely casual. Leo wore his suit again, but when it was over, he loosened his tie, and several younger council members actually asked him about Earth fashion. Cultural exchange was already beginning. As his shuttle prepared for departure, Leo shook my hand in the human custom. Take care of yourself, Throk. Maybe I will see you on Earth someday. We have pretty good beaches. I may take you up on that offer, he grinned. Fair warning, though, humans are kind of chaotic. We are not as organized as you guys. I think I can handle a little chaos now, I said, and I meant it. I watched his shuttle lift off, disappearing into the sky. Around me, the city continued its daily rhythm. But something had changed. I could feel it, a shift in perspective, a loosening of rigid structures. One human in a ridiculous shirt had walked into our most sacred institution and somehow convinced an empire to reconsider its foundations, not through force or threats, but through honesty, humor, and a willingness to challenge assumptions. Later that week, I noticed junior administrators showing up to meetings in less formal attire. Nothing as dramatic as a Hawaiian shirt, but definitely more relaxed. Ventrix complained about declining standards. Krelzan pointed out that productivity had actually increased. The commission to review treaties was established within a month. 3 species immediately requested renegotiations. All were granted. And 6 months after Leo Brennan left our planet, the first human delegation arrived to begin implementing the medical technology exchange. They brought samples, detailed documentation, and apparently, coffee. They also brought a gift for me specifically, a package with a note in Leo's handwriting, for Throck, who took a chance on chaos, wear it proudly. Inside was a Hawaiian shirt, bright blue, covered in small spaceships and alien flowers. I hung it in my office where everyone could see it, a reminder that sometimes the best diplomacy is not about following rules. Sometimes it is about being brave enough to make new ones. And somewhere out in the galaxy, I like to imagine Leo Brennan was grinning, knowing exactly what kind of trouble he had started. The good kind.